Hey, new inside linebackers coach is headed to Madison, and a weird difference in hiring philosophy on the offensive and defensive side of the football staff that we're going to get into on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it, guys. We've been building the community. We now have more YouTube subscribers than Locked On Gophers, as it should be. Listen, we got to catch Iowa, though. Iowa has more subscribers than us. We are a better program and a better fan base than Iowa. So let's keep continuing to march ahead, build the community. If you like the show, I really do appreciate it if you leave a like, leave a review, subscribe to the show. It just takes a second, and it really does help. It helps promote the show. It helps it grow, and we can just continue to loop in more Badger fans, more guests, and just, like I said, continue to build the community. That's 100% the goal. So appreciate everybody who's tuning in, and let's get into it. So we're going to talk about the new inside linebackers coach that was hired, Mark D'Onofrio. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a good hire. I'm pretty excited about this one. But I want to start with, there's a weird kind of difference, especially this offseason in – kind of the last couple off seasons, but markedly this offseason, in how the hires have happened on the offensive side and the defensive side. You know, if you look, I want to start with the defensive side. Look at the defensive coaches, right? All of those guys are rock solid. All of those guys, and I'm gonna add include the new inside linebackers coach in that. All those guys either played the position or coached the position. You know, Bobby April coached outside linebackers. Mark D'Onofrio, multiple defensive coordinator positions, multiple linebacker coaching positions. He played the position. He was drafted, to play linebacker into the NFL. You know, Ross Kalaji was a defensive lineman, or a college defensive lineman, and he played in the NFL as a defensive lineman. Jim Leonard, we all know his story. Safety, in college, safety in the NFL. You know, Hank Poteet was a cornerbacks coach. These are all guys that, they're rock solid. They have experience. They can fall back on all that. And the defense has been so good that they seem to, the experience that they have just seems to augment everything that the defense is already doing. And then on the offensive side, you have this really weird situation where the offense has struggled a lot. And to fix it, it's like we've gone in the complete opposite direction of what the defense has done. And the defense has been successful. And on the offensive side, we just decided we're going to hire a bunch of guys who have never done it before. And it's not universal, but it's really weird to me that to fix the offense this offseason, we have essentially just thrown a bunch of coaches that haven't done it into roles. I don't really love it. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm rooting for it to succeed. I am a Badgers fan, so I'm rooting for it to succeed. But you look at the hires, and again, I want to talk about this because the last couple inside linebackers coaches that we hired, again, we went through a couple this offseason, right? Bill Sheridan came in, only lasted a couple weeks, a month or so. And, Mark D'Onofrio is coming in. But both those guys had tons of experience, like lengthy resumes, defensive coordinator positions, and they were coming in, and you just felt like these guys know how to coach people up. They know the college game. They're about this life. They get it. And on the offensive side, Paul Chryst is like, we got to fix the offense. So let's bring in Bobby Ingram, who's a tight ends coach, played receiver. He's going to be the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Okay. And, Gary Brown, that's just a tragedy. And there's obviously that's bigger than football. But Gary Brown, obviously passed away, is no longer on the staff. But to replace him, we went and got Al Johnson, who was an offensive lineman at Wisconsin, has never coached the position, has never played the position, hasn't recruited specifically for the position. Okay. Tight ends coach, we moved Mickey Turner, who was a tight end, at least in college. We moved him into the recruiting department, where, by the way, I think he's a great fit. I've talked about that before. I think that's a home run. But we're moving Chris Herring over to it. Chris Herring wasn't a tight end, hasn't coached it before. He was a special teams guy last year. I don't know. I wish that they would have taken kind of a page out of the defensive side and said, no, we need not less experience. We need more. Right, we need more guys with acumen and more guys that can dip into their bag of tricks to fix this offense. We don't need a guy who's never coached quarterbacks coaching Graham Mertz, and we don't need a guy who's never coached running backs coaching Braylon Allen, and a guy who's never coached tight ends, coaching up any number of tight ends that we have on the roster right now. Like, it feels weird to me, and I don't know why the two sides, the offense and the defense, seemingly have such drastically different philosophies. running back in particular, Wisconsin can hire some heavy hitters at that spot. And part of the big problem for me, I hope all these guys succeed. I don't know any of them. I'm sure they're all good dudes, by the way. Al Johnson, I've heard, is a great guy. I hope they all crush it because, again, I am a Wisconsin fan. I would rather do this podcast when Wisconsin's crushing life. It's more fun to talk about your teams when they're awesome. But I am always going to try to keep it real with y'all. And there's an inherent problem to me where Wisconsin is too good of a program where we have multiple coaches cutting their teeth in brand new spots. I think we need to be at the spot where we are letting other programs at lower levels, kind of weed out coaches, find good ones, and then we should be rating those. Like you look at the running back coaches, just in particular, Wisconsin's been a little higher. Thomas Brown, sorry. Hammock played in the NFL. We all talk about Settle, right, and his lack of recruiting, but Settle was an NFL dude. He's a Pro Bowler. Like those are legit dudes that played running back at high level that brought a legit resume. Gary Brown was the coach for the Dallas Cowboys, for Pete's sake, and then we replaced kind of that lineage with Al Johnson. It just feels like, again, where the defense, when they have an opening, they really lean more towards, and maybe this is Jim Leonard. Maybe he has a ton of say on that side. I don't know. But they seem to really lean towards experience. We want somebody who's going to come in and not be on a learning curve. And it feels like on the offensive side, it leans the other way. And I don't fully understand that. Now, if you're asking me what I think of those individual hires on it, I love Bobby Ingram. I think that's a great addition. I don't understand why he didn't come in as the offensive coordinator, tight ends coach. There was an opening at tight end. And Bobby Ingram coached tight ends in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens and was really good at it. It feels like a move where Paul Chryst wants to keep Chris Herring on the staff and there's a place to put him. But does that make the staff better? Which is Paul Chryst's responsibility? Would the staff have been better if, you had brought in a dedicated quarterbacks coach and then had Bobby Ingram coaching tight ends? I mean, probably, right? So I think there's some issues with how they built the staff out on the offensive side. Whereas I think the defensive side just continues to knock it out of the park. And there's probably a reason the defense is going to be really good again. And they've been really good for a long time. They've made great hires, so it's just strange to me. It's something I wanted to chop up. I want your guys' take on it. Am I crazy on this? Am I off base? Maybe I am. Maybe there's nothing there and I'm grasping at straws, but I do think it's unusual. Coming up next, guys, we're going to dive into the new inside linebackers coach, Mark D'Onofrio, why I think it is a home run addition. I really, really like it. And the concerns about him being out of coaching for a little while don't bother me at all. We're going to get into that next. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. And even if you're struggling a little bit, you're on a bit of a bad run, BetOnline always gives you opportunity to responsibly, maybe some futures, maybe some prop bets. A fun way to get back into the game, get back into the action. And it's also a site with all your Vegas games, roulette, 21 blackjack. So you don't just have to go there for sports betting. There's a lot of ways to have fun. The website's super easy to use. It's intuitive. And as I talked about before, guys, it's a great time for futures, right? Baseball's heating up. Pretty soon we're going to be approaching the trade deadline, and the action's really going to be fast and furious. Basketball finals happening right now as we speak. And it's a great time for NFL futures. We talked about the Wisconsin over under 8.5. I'm curious where everyone is on that. I'm over, but I think it's close. You can get on there and with all these futures, with all the props, have a lot of fun with it. Go to the website today, BetOnline, where the game starts. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Rock Auto. Guys, I've talked to you about my Jeep. My Jeep at times can be a bit of a jalopy. I've ordered parts off of Rock Auto all the time. The website has drop-down menus. It's really easy just to pick exactly what you need, and you're going to save 30, 50 to 100% off your price if you had gone to like the local auto parts store. And we've all been to the local auto parts store. Not only is it more expensive, it's aggravating. Y'all know this, right? You go there and you're talking to the guy. They probably don't have the exact parts you even need, and you're going to get charged more for it. You're going to spend too much time there trying to break down the exact model you have as he punches it in the thing. Listen, save time, save money, have it shipped to your house. All the best parts about car shopping, Rock Auto 2022. It's the way to do it. Go to the website today. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car and truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us section so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thank you guys again for making Locked On your first listen every day. Locked On Badgers. Really appreciate the support. Ultimate NBA mock draft starts June 16th. 50 insiders Nothing equals what the NBA Ultimate Locked On Mock Draft is going to give you. Make sure you tune in starting June 16th. All right, guys, let's jump back into this because this is exciting. New inside linebacker coach is hired, and Mark D'Onofrio, I really like it, right? So he's a guy who let's start at the beginning. He played at Penn State, really good linebacker, drafted to the Packers. He didn't last long in the NFL, but pedigree's there. Big Ten guy. I always like it when Big Ten guys kind of come home. They have that understanding, that region, whatever it is. It feels like an intangible that matters a little bit. Bobby Ingram, by the way, also a Penn State guy. And that's the connection. They were teammates at Penn State for a year or two. And then he's been a linebackers coach at Rutgers. He's been a linebackers coach at Virginia. He's been a defensive coordinator at Houston, at Miami, at Temple as well. He's been a recruiting coordinator, right? He has ties to Pennsylvania. He has ties to New Jersey. When he was in Miami, he was a really good recruiter. Like, this is a guy that checks a lot of boxes. And again, going back to the first segment, we talked about experience. Jim Leonhard is incredible, right? We all get that. I don't need to say that. He's still young, though. I think that was the allure of adding a guy like Bill Sheridan before D'Onofrio was hired. Sheridan brought a wealth of experience, and this guy does too. This guy has had 3 stops as a defensive coordinator. He's been a recruiting coordinator. I think he brings a ton of juice to the table, and I think it's something that the staff specifically is looking for, another guy that can maybe, I don't want to say challenge the rest of the coaches because the defense has been incredible, right? But maybe a way to elevate their game a little bit by picking and choosing things he's seen, things he's been around, things he's implemented. I think it's a really good hire on all those fronts. An experienced guy. And he's a guy that some fans were critical of as a defensive coordinator, especially in his last stop at Houston. But he's not coming here to be a defensive coordinator, right? He's coming here to be an inside linebackers coach. That's it. And for a guy with his type of experience, a guy who's been that linebackers coach at a ton of stops. And by the way, the reason he got promoted to defensive coordinator, let's be honest here, is because he was a good inside linebackers coach. That's how this works, right? Coaches start at an assistant spot, and if they're good, they become coordinators. So what I'm trying to say is this dude, Mark D'Onofrio never would have been a defensive coordinator if he didn't excel first as a linebackers coach. That's how it works everywhere. It's not football, right? If you're in the corporate world, you're not getting promoted to the general manager spot if you're not doing great at the sales position, right? If you're the teacher, you're not getting promoted to the principal's office unless you're doing great as the teacher. So that's how it works. He was a successful linebackers coach that has multiple stops as a defensive coordinator, and he was a recruiting coordinator, and he has ties to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Miami, Florida. Yes, please. Yes, I'm all about it. At this stage in the game, that's the other thing too. At this stage in the game, with a lot of coaches off the board, and I'm not saying Wisconsin couldn't go poach somebody if they needed to, because I think that's overblown that, all the coaches off the board. Listen, if Wisconsin walked into, I don't know, 60, 70 different Division I programs in the country and said, hey, we would like to hire you and poach you, a lot of people are going to leave their job to go to Wisconsin. However, this is still a challenging time to hire. A lot of staffs are filled out. A lot of quality candidates have moved into their new roles. So for the spot we're in now, to get somebody like Mark D'Onofrio, I think it's a home run. I love the addition. I love the hire. And again, to me, it's another example of the defensive side of the ball knocking it out of the park. And I'm a little worried that the offense doesn't do the same. So how does all this work together? I think now you still have, I really don't. In fact, I think you might even be better on the defensive side, right? Because you've replaced Bob Bostad. Everyone remember how the dominoes here fell. Bob Bostad was the inside linebackers coach last year. Moved over to offensive line. They replaced him with Bill Sheridan, who had recruiting violations, obviously. He had to move on. So what we've done is we basically replaced what we all consider a really good coach in Bob Bostad, but we replaced him with an actual inside linebackers coach. The defense could be even better, guys. The coaching staff on that side could be even better. And we can't judge the inside linebacker play next year and use that as a referendum, right? Because Bob Bostad had Leo Chanel and Sanborn. D'Onofrio's not walking into that. So inside linebacker play, no matter who's coaching, is going to drop off next year, guys. I hope everyone understands that. And when we're not, destroying, teams, fullbacks in the middle, when we're maybe giving up a little more rushing yards, it's not because D'Onofrio's a bad coach. It's because we lost 2 NFL dudes in the middle of that defense. But I think the coaching staff is probably better on that side. I really like this hire. I think it's another home run. It's going to augment Bobby April, Ross Kalaji, Poteet, Leonard. Again, like, the defense just seems to do it all right. And I'm really, really impressed with their continued ability to do that, to make good hires, to make solid hires. And I expect nothing but continued success on that side of the ball. Coming up, guys, we're going to finish off this show with a really quick, just kind of back and forth, or not back and forth, but a really quick chop up of, is the coaching staff better than last year? We're going to go kind of position by position in a way. Where are we better? Where are we worse, in my opinion? I'd love to hear you guys' take on that. But first, today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. I've talked about Built Bar a bunch. It's, like I said, I have the reoccurring Amazon buy because I go through so many Built Bars. My kids buy them, and I'm a guy who can't cook. Not only can I not cook, I don't really like to cook. It's like the double whammy. So I struggle feeding my kids. And at times they've just started to raid my Built Bars, which frankly is kind of awesome because they're healthy. You know, it's 100% pure chocolate. All the chocolate's 100%, but it's 15, 20 grams of protein, low fat, low calories. It tastes like a candy bar, so my kids like it, but it's actually something that's good for their bodies, help build their muscles, help build my muscles. It's something that you want to get in on, guys. It's a great way to get a little healthier in 2020. Tons of great flavors. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious, and they figure everything else out after that point. Go to built.com, promo code LOCK15. That's LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at built.com. All right, guys, I wanted to talk about the coaching staff in general now. Is this staff, because there's been a ton of turnover. Is this staff better than last year's staff? And I'm going to pause there for a second and just let you guys think about it for a second. I really would love to get your comments on this and get your takes on this. I think it is. And I think it's a weird, and I know that might sound weird because I just in the first segment kind of lambasted how the offensive staff was put together. But I'm going to get into 4 reasons why I think this staff is better and 2 reasons where I'm still a little concerned. But I think I like what happened this offseason for the most part, even if I'm a little leery of a bunch of new guys and different new spots on the offensive side. Let me start with this. Let me give you my number 1 reason why I think the coaching staff is better in 2022, and it's Paul Chryst. It may sound weird because he was here last year, but last year on the Bucky Cast, where the show I was a part of, before the season started, I said Paul Chryst straight up has too much on his plate. Too much. This is not going to work. You cannot, in 2022, be the head coach, the quarterback's coach, and the offensive coordinator. You cannot do it. It's way too much. And it didn't work. Shocking, right? So now he can just kind of be the head coach. I know for a fact he's still going to be involved in game planning, and that's fine. I know he's going to be involved in quarterbacks. That's fine. But now you have a guy in Bobby Ingram who is the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. This is going to allow, hopefully, Paul Chryst to take a step back, better strategic management of the team, of the roster, game and time situations, which quite frankly wasn't a strength of his last year in the Minnesota game. This should allow him, in my opinion, less on his plate, and he can really focus in on managing the game, managing the roster, bigger picture stuff, which is what a head coach needs to do. So I think that's the biggest change right there. We're going to be better because Paul Chryst is going to be more focused on the head coaching stuff and less on the assistant stuff. I think it's a big deal. I think it's going to bear dividends. The next one is Bobby Ingram. Now, Bobby Ingram is kind of tied into this. Obviously, him coming on board gives Paul Chryst the leeway to be more of a head coach. But I also straight up just really love Bobby Ingram coming in. I like getting a dynamic personality, a guy that was in the Ravens coaching staff, a guy who had tremendous success in the Big Ten. I think he's going to check recruiting boxes. I think the fact that he was in the NFL in a winning culture with really good coaches really matters. He's going to come in with pedigree, right? He's not going to be an offensive coordinator who's going to come in as a doorstop where Chryst is just going to bulldoze him. You don't bring Bobby Ingram in. And quite frankly, Bobby Ingram doesn't leave the Ravens because that's a good situation for a coach. It's a great situation for a coach. You're not leaving that to come to Wisconsin as the offensive coordinator if you don't have actual sway. So I think, I'm still a little sketched out on the fact that he's also coaching quarterbacks. That's weird to me. But him coming in as the offensive coordinator, I love it. I love having someone come in that's going to have a little bit more control into the offense and maybe force Chryst to evolve a little bit into maybe a little more modern passing game. Bob Bostad moving over. That's my third one. What more can we say, right? I think it's the best coaching move of the entire offseason. Bob Bostad is a tremendous offensive line coach that was coaching inside linebackers for us, and our offensive line was underperforming. Now we move him back over to the offensive line. By the way, the offensive line getting better makes Graham Mertz's job easier. It makes the running game better. It takes pressure off the defense because we can control the clock more. Everything works better with Bob Bostad at the offensive line. I think it's the best positional change on the staff in the entire offseason. I think it's an absolute home run, and we're going to see dividends this year. I guarantee it. And the last one I really like is Mark D'Onofrio. We just talked about, I'm not going to rehash all the positives, but this late in the game, being able to add in a linebackers coach who has major recruiting experience, great recruiting ties, and was a defensive coordinator at 3 different spots. Yeah, I think it's a home run. I think it's a home run addition. Let me give you the 2 reasons why I don't, or the 2 areas where I think the staff maybe took a step back from last year. The first one is running backs coach. And, excuse me, you can't replace Gary Brown with Al Johnson and not expect to drop off, right? And that's not on Al. That's not Al Johnson's fault. Gary Brown had been a professional running backs coach for a long, long time at a very high level. And you're replacing him with a guy who's an offensive lineman, has never coached running backs. That spot's going to be worse. And that's in next year, right? Al Johnson may grow into a great running backs coach. I hope he does. And I've heard, like I said earlier in the show, I've heard tremendous things about Al Johnson. Excuse me. And he may end up being a great running backs coach, but it's not going to be next year. It's just not, guys. And it's going to be a bit of a step down. The other one is Chris Herring. And Chris Herring has always been kind of referred to as Paul Chryst, right-hand man, a guy that is always going to be on the staff as long as Paul Chryst is here. But quite frankly, his results haven't been that great. He was the special teams coach. The special teams have not been exemplary. Now he's moving over to tight ends to replace a guy, Mickey Turner, who I think was a pretty good coach. And I just don't have a lot of faith that Chris Herring is going to be a great tight ends coach. He hasn't proven himself to be a great recruiter. And quite frankly, he's never played the position of tight end. He's never coached it. It feels like one of the spots on the roster, on the coaching staff, that is just people are always going to be a little frustrated with. And I don't know Chris. I'm sure he's a great guy. I just don't know why his fit on this coaching staff is necessarily tight ends. It feels like a forced fit, but that's it, guys. If you aggregate that out, I have 4 reasons why I think we're going to be a lot better on the staff. I have 2 reasons why we won't be. I think overall the staff has improved. I think the head coach, just being able to be a head coach, having an offensive coordinator with some sway, having the best offensive line coach and one of the best offensive line coaches in college football back coaching the offensive line, and then bringing in a big-time experienced linebackers coach. Those are home run moves, guys. I think it's going to make a big, big difference. And I think the younger pieces, Al Johnson, Chris Herring, who don't have the experience, should be able to grow in this ecosystem of a lot of other good coaches. So overall, I think it's a better staff. Let me know what you guys think, though. Sorry, my voice is going out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we're going to wrap it up there. While my voice continues to kind of to waver, it's getting late here. So thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. As always, leave a like. Listen, if you like the show, subscribe, leave a comment. Definitely things that we want to continue doing to build the community. So if you leave comments, things you want to talk about on the show, definitely do that. I appreciate everybody, and we'll talk later.